Unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time. All right, opinion alert. Here comes an opinion. Or maybe not. I don't know. I'm formulating an opinion. I just watched, I watched the Super Bowl alternative halftime show by Turning Point USA because I'm petty. Okay? That's why I watched it. I wasn't particularly interested in any of the artists because, quite frankly, I didn't know who any of them were, except for Kid Rock, and I've never been a fan of Kid Rock. Musically, aesthetically, back in the day, he never did anything for me. You know, I think the only thing about him that I liked was the fact that he didn't turn the brim down on his fedora, you know. But even then, I mean, there just wasn't much to like. I didn't even like the midget. The midget creeped me out. Remember the midget? It felt exploitative, strange. I couldn't really get into the idea that they were friends. Maybe they're friends. I don't know. I've never had a real midget friend, a little person friend. I'm sure they could be friends with people that are not midgets. But I'll bet you most midgets would rather be friends with other midgets that don't call them midgets, that call them little people or whatever the word of the day is. I mean, who's that guy? The Game of Thrones guy. Oh, God. Can you imagine that midget? Can you imagine how mad he'd get at you for calling him a midget and not calling him? Anyway, I didn't like Kid Rock. I wasn't a big fan. But I decided, because I got some alert on my phone because I signed up for something or I clicked a website a long time ago, and now I get all these different updates from right-leaning things saying, hey, watch our live TPUSA halftime show. And if it wasn't for the Bad Bunny controversy, Super Bowl Sunday would have come and gone without any fanfare, you know, and the controversy about that alternative halftime show. So, but anyway, I watched it just because Bad Bunny in a dress, blah, 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 the whole thing in Spanish. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I want to watch it just so they can have one viewer more. You know, that's how petty I've become. I want to watch the channel that doesn't hate white people. That is how low my bar has become. I could watch the Super Bowl halftime show where they hate white people, or I could watch the one that doesn't hate white people. So I watched it. And let me just say, my attitudes on pop country haven't changed much. They've changed a little bit. I've grown a little bit more patient with them, and I'm more forgiving. But I made a joke years ago that I think still stands. It was, I wonder how much of the U.S. military is spent on country music videos. Because, I don't know, there's something about a lot of pop country. I'm not talking about Hank Williams and Crystal Gayle and Eddie Rabbitt and, you know, all the older country, Glenn Campbell. I'm not talking George Jones. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about modern crossover pop country. Just the ones that just sound like an absolute formula. Every song sounds like the same singer. Every song has the same 1-4-5 progression. And it's my truck, fishing, girls, jeans, and a t-shirt, my truck. beer, have me a beer. It's just like, okay, okay, I get it. Those are simple things. I like simple things. Small town, one red light, blah, blah, blah. I relate with this stuff. I don't hate that rural content, but there's got to be a little bit of a surprise in a song, you know? And when you've heard the same song 1,000 times by another guy who has dad body and dad face and dad hat, I just, I don't know. I'm not thrilled by it, you know? I'm not moved. And so there you go. But I watched it with an open mind, and I liked some of the lyrics that, you know, while nothing was shocking, I'm like, okay, at least this is kind of wholesome, but does wholesomeness always have to include nationality? You know, does it always have to include waving a flag? Or can't wholesomeness just be a story about a boy and his dog? You know? Or a boy and his dad? Or a boy and a girl? The infusion of the American stuff has always just been like, yeah, I don't get it. Look, maybe I'm not the most patriotic guy in the world, and maybe it's because I grew up in an America that's not super wholesome. You know, that's the funny thing about conservatism is they're still waving the flag and they're still loving America and what it stands for. And I get it if it goes back to the Constitution, but we are so far away from that, and we have been so far away from it for a long time. I sometimes wonder when right-wingers are flying the American flag, I'm wondering how they wrap their head around that it also represents all the people that actually hate America. Do you know what I mean? It's a weird thing. At a certain point, do you go, yeah, I think I kind of want to, you know, I don't know. Anyway, so I clicked and I watched live. In fact, I clicked in early. I watched the countdown for 15 minutes. So excited as I was to give them one more view so they could brag about people logging off the NFL. Anyway, by the time I got around to Kid Rock, he did the ba with the ba, the bang, the bang, diggy, 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 that song that he does all the time. And I'm watching this guy. I had to ask Siri, how old is Kid Rock? 55. And I'm thinking, why is this 55-year-old guy jumping around, lip syncing his own song, not even trying to match it up? I kind of respected the fact that he was not lip syncing and matching it up. He was like literally taking the mic away and not saying anything as the rap was continuing. He was so obvious about it that it had to be intentional. But then I thought, actually, maybe he overestimated himself, because this is something I would do. I tend to show up for things to wing it. Like, for example, this right now. I'm a winger. Not Kip winger, but I wing things. I always think, I don't need to prepare. I don't need to write out a script. I'll just do it when I get there. It'll be fine, you know? And see what tangents I go on. And this is fine for a recording like this because you can skip it. But I used to do this when I was a Sunday school teacher. I used to do this when I had my own little church thing here in San Francisco. And sometimes it works out okay. Sometimes you follow tangents and they weave back around and things are entertaining, but other times it's just shitty. Like, for example, right now. This is a moment where not preparing takes you down a little tangent about that. But I kind of thought when Kid Rock was not rapping, I thought, oh, I'll bet you he's in pain. I'll bet you right now he's jumping around. He's using muscle memory from when he was young, doing all those wacky Flavor Flav hip hop dancing moves that aren't even white guy moves. And he's probably hurt himself. He is probably in pain right now. And I was thinking this because I threw my back out yesterday making the bed in the Airbnb, just getting the Airbnb prepped for my new guests. I fucking wrecked my back. You know, here's the thing, man. Getting old is weird. He's 3 years younger than me. Way better shape, you know. Not way, but better shape. He's active. He's out doing stuff. I could lose 20 pounds easily. I'm about 205. If I was, 185, that's my fighting weight, But, yeah, I threw my back out just fucking changing the sheets. So embarrassing. It's a weird thing, too. It's like my body just tells me, yeah, you can get into a position if you want to, but getting out of it is going to be the problem. Like if you lay down, fine. But when you go to stand up, oh shit. Or when you're standing up, okay, you're fine. When you go to sit down, oh shit. It's like once you get there, stay there for a while. Don't think about changing. Anyway, so that's what I'm thinking when I'm watching Kid Rock and his bad lip syncing. I'm thinking, the guy fucking right now is probably having a spasm in something. One of his joints is killing him, and he's forgetting the lyrics because he's overcome with pain because he overestimated what he was winging it. He didn't rehearse, He didn't do his rehearsal. He thought, I can do this. But there he is, 55 years old, trying to move like a 20-year-old, and he's in pain. That's what I'm thinking. But then, the girl singer came on, and I didn't really pay much attention to her. It's just like standard white country lady pop song, not grabbing my attention. But then, by the end, Kid Rock came back. And also, here's a little thing that was kind of weird about it. They had 4 black dudes introduce Kid Rock. It's like they didn't have any black artists, but they had these token blacks, say, my friend, Kid Rock. And then they came back to introduce him as Richard, whatever his last name was, Richard Simmons. Is that his name? No, Richard Simmons. It's not Richard Simmons. It's something else. That would be pretty funny if Kid Rock's real name was Richard Simmons. But, they just take the token black guys why do we still need that? The whole point of tuning in to Turning Point USA's halftime show, there's one reason, and it's that they don't hate white people. That's it. It's the only reason to tune in. That's why I tuned in. My bar is so low that I'm just tuning in to hear people that don't hate white people, right? I think that's a good enough reason, honestly. I think it's a good enough reason to cut Kid Rock some slack for his weird, not so great aesthetics. And according to me, fashion expert, and, but anyway, so I did that, and I made a little recording about it, and I forgot to push record, and because of the winging it, and I was like 30 minutes into recording this same basic kind of shit, and I discovered that I wasn't recording. This has happened before. This is not the first time. And I looked at the recording thing and I thought, oh, fuck, I didn't record any of that. So I turned it off and thought, forget about it. I don't need to make an update about this fucking halftime show. I was talking about how I don't like sports. I stopped liking sports when I was young because I met these whole bunch of things. I went on a whole tangent about sports and why I didn't like them and sports that I wasn't I'm not going to tell all those stories again. I'm sorry. They'll come up again. I'm old. We recycle our stories when we get old. They'll come back up again, but I can't bring myself to get into all the tangents that I was in on the recording that wasn't recording. And I shouldn't be telling you that there was. But that's what happened. So I got up, had a bagel with just butter. By the way, this is another thing that I have figured out. These are signs of becoming elderly, right? I don't know what age you are before you're elderly. I think you have to be 65 before you're considered to be elderly. But I'm headed in that direction. And one item of proof is that I've suddenly, just recently, discovered that bread and butter is a complete snack. That's it. Bread, butter. Complete snack. Not cooked, not microwaved, just room temperature bread, room temperature butter. So yeah, that works with bagels or whatever you want. But isn't that an old person thing? That's got to be an old person thing. So I had that, and then I came back, and I was kind of bragging about the fact that I had no idea who was in the Super Bowl, because I had no idea. And I went on this long thing where I thought it was the Minnesota Vikings. And then I tied that into Vikings things, Minnesota, God's poetry, what's going on, why are the Vikings in the Super Bowl, and find your inner Viking that, the only reason to watch TPUSA is because they're not hating on white people and Vikings and white, and how did Somalia move into Vikings territory, and isn't that just biblical anyway? Pirates from Somalia, shipbuilding Vikings in Minnesota in the Super Bowl. The whole thing was this amazing tangent that never got recorded. And in my disappointment, I ate some bread and butter and noticed on the TV, which is on, just there on my Roku channel, on the Roku welcome screen, it said Seahawks versus Patriots. So that's who's in the Super Bowl, in case you didn't know. I don't even know if it's over yet. It might be just ending now. But needless to say, I wasn't much interested in the Super Bowl itself for reasons that I'm not going to go into again, because I already said them in a recording that went nowhere. Okay? Are we good with that? Well, we're going to have to be, because that's the way it's going to be. But so, part of the other bragging on that episode that went nowhere was that I wasn't going to watch the Bad Bunny thing. Because, I don't need to see it. I've already seen enough of Bad Bunny. I already saw him saying, you better learn Spanish. You, this and that and this and that, Him in a dress, burning the American flag, might have been an AI video, I don't know. But I don't like his face. I don't like his stupid, long monkey face. What are the monkeys with the long nose that have blue on them? His face is shaped like that. Eyes really close together, long nose, monkey face. That monkey it looks like he's painted like a warrior. Do you know what monkey I'm talking about? The long, skinny nose, long face. He looks like one of those guys. And I don't like the name Bad Bunny. I don't like that a man was sitting around and thinking, what am I going to call my musical act? And he thought, Bad Bunny. No, I didn't like it. And the man in the dress thing, let me just say something about that too. I have been a man in a dress. It's probably been 15 years. I've been in San Francisco. I've explained ad nauseum about how I was an ally to the gays, hanging out with all my gay friends, hanging out with the drag queens, fashion designers, front row at fashion shows, blah, blah, blah. Friends that are on Project Runway. I watched Runway. I really went all in on this ally shit. And nothing was fake. I still do, well, I did for a long time enjoy fashion. I enjoyed watching people do things different, having a different idea. And so I became friends with fashion designers. And one of them was this woman, and I could tell a long story about her. A woman who dated a Puerto Rican guy and threw herself in front of a train and tried to kill herself on Thanksgiving when usually I would go to her house for Thanksgiving. It's a long story. Popular queen of the gays. I was in one of her fashion shows once, and she wanted to put me in drag. And I thought, that'll be fun. Why not? And showed up at this fashion show, and some drag queen put drag makeup on me, and I had to wear heels for this thing. And let me tell you something. I do not make for a beautiful woman, like at all. And let me tell you another thing. Getting drag makeup put on your face is one of the most annoying things in the world. Just having somebody in your face and you're just kind of trying not to breathe on them and they're breathing on you. And anyway, you can go, if you're my Facebook friend, you can go find a picture of me at this fashion show. Another thing I learned at this fashion show is that high heels are fucking the worst shoes you could ever possibly wear. I don't understand. Women and guys that wear high heels must have completely different legs than me. There's completely different muscles that you need to walk in high heel shoes that I wasn't aware even existed, but I don't have them at all. Like literally just walking down the hallway, then walking down the runway and back in those high heels, I thought I was going to die. I'm surprised I didn't fall and break my legs. My feet aren't meant to walk like that. So, anyway, when I see Bad Bunny wearing a dress, and also, No Doubt, hanging out with No Doubt, a long-standing tradition in rock and roll is for dudes to wear outfits that will annoy people. That's part of rock and roll, is to push buttons, to do controversial things to show, I don't care, I'm wearing pink. You think I'm gay because I'm wearing pink? Well, that's exactly why I'm wearing it, because you can't handle it, I did all that shit. I did that in high school, for crying out loud. I dressed like Duran Duran. I wore white Capezio dance shoes. Why? Because everybody else in my school was a fucking cowboy. Future Farmers of America was the big thing in my high school. So watch me coming with the fluffy fucking Wham hair, Duran Duran hair. So when I see Bad Bunny doing that, I'm going, okay, I can't suddenly just be an old guy and hate it. But the difference is it's 2026 now. And a lot has happened since I did that. And a lot of that, what has happened is that children have been mutilated. When I did that, the pride flag existed, but it wasn't in every kindergarten, right? When I did that, the pride flag existed, but there weren't thousands and thousands of people, children, being castrated chemically and otherwise, being mutilated forever, right? I was in there in the naive stage. I should have known that's where it was going, but I didn't. I was too busy shocking my Mormon friends, my uptight conservative people, like, you people need to loosen up. This is what it looks like. Oh, you're afraid because I'm in makeup, Yeah, that was part of it back then. But again, a lot has happened since then. That was before Donald Trump. That was before 2016. And we all know what has happened since then. So I'm looking at Bad Bunny in a dress now with that. It's much harder to look at somebody now who's pushing those buttons and thinking they have the same mindset as I had back then, because the world is not the same now as it was back then. It's not even close to being the same now as it was back then. Sure, there was gender bending, there was all this other kind of stuff that was going on, but it was existing outside of the child mutilation that has happened since. That's not small. That's huge. This was pre-trans bonanza. Now that we know about trans bonanza and child transing, now that we've seen that whole fight, Bad Bunny wearing a dress doesn't look like Adrian Young wearing a dress or Iggy Pop wearing a dress, although warning signs. But do you know, am I crazy for seeing that distinction? How different it is that there was it's like a cutoff point. As soon as Donald Trump came on the scene, that I don't know if it was just a coincidence that they both happened together, but Team Pride flag went bananas. So yeah, it's different. I try to cut Bad Bunny some slack. He's young or whatever, but again, different world. He might not know it because when you're young, you just grow up. You don't realize, I think of myself, and I think I wasn't aware of what was happening in the 60s when I was in the 80s. I was born in the 60s, but you don't remember it. And a lot of these kids now don't remember what life was like before trans bonanza. They don't know, Anyway, I'm meandering. But so anyway, I decided I should watch the Bad Bunny show. I should just suck it up. I don't want to be one of those people talking shit about without seeing it. And so when I turned it on, a couple of various things occurred to me. First thing I thought was, this is Desi Arnaz 2.0. It wasn't as big of a deal. I was getting annoyed that it was all in Spanish. That's very annoying. It felt like a hostile takeover of the United States for sure. You take American football, which is American as can be, a sport invented in America in the United States. It's United Statesian, and you just say, okay, no, we're going to have a halftime show, which is all Latin people, and it'll be in Spanish, and in Spanish they will be talking about how awesome it is to be Latino. How awesome it is to be Latino. Latino pride. The halftime show of American football, one of the biggest American institutions in the world, it is. Is there something bigger than the Super Bowl? No, it's the Super Bowl. So that American tradition, they've decided to just say, no, Latino pride. And remember, when I was watching TPUSA, they weren't saying white pride. Not one time did anybody go, it's great to be white. Whiteness is the greatest. You wouldn't believe how great it is to be white. People say, maybe they were in a roundabout saying that because they were saying all these things that white people like. But no, on the Super Bowl, it was out. Can you imagine doing that? If it was just, can you imagine a Super Bowl if the TPUSA show was the Super Bowl show at the Super Bowl, and they were just singing the same content as Bad Bunny, but flipped for whiteness? Imagine it. You can't imagine it because there's no, that would be a Nazi rally. They would say this is a Nazi rally. These people dancing and organizing, all these white people, no brown people, just all white. And they're singing about being white and exclusively white things. Well, that's what the Super Bowl show was, but for Latin people. And I was thinking, no, this isn't Lucy and Desi Arnaz. When Lady Gaga was the only white person that I could see in the entire thing. Like, first of all, just imagine that. Just imagine that. Imagine saying, well, okay, NFL commissioner, we're going to do a halftime show, but let me tell you, every single person's going to be white in the halftime show. We're going to have one representative of another race. We don't know which one, maybe a black guy. But everybody else in the rest of the show is going to be 100% white, and we're going to sing about whiteness and white things. Okay? No, heads explode, fire, brimstone, weeping, wailing, gnashing of teeth, things melt. Nazi, Nazi, Nazi. But yet, that's exactly what happened with the Super Bowl halftime show, the biggest event in the United States. So when I was trying to play it down, I was trying to go, okay, this is good music. I was even trying to do this. Okay, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. One of the songs that he did in this show, again, all in Spanish, no English at all, besides Lady Gaga for 2 seconds. There's a song about Hawaii that he did with Ricky Martin, gay man. And they're talking about what happened to Hawaii. It got gentrified. So they're not only just saying, hey, being Latino is great, but let's talk about Hawaii and what white people did to Hawaii. So it's not just we're happy about being Latinos, we're also going to take some pot shots at white people and what happened to Hawaii. And you can see why he might want to do that, because Puerto Rico. Now, I have some thoughts on that. You know, I can kind of, if I'm Latin and I'm Puerto Rican, I can kind of understand how they might feel that way, right? I can understand how Hawaiians might feel about the United States coming over and imposing things, or however. I don't know how the negotiations went there. I don't know what happened with Puerto Rico either. But I can understand how somebody with a totally different culture might not like being ruled by white people, or mostly white people, or whatever. And I can see how they would want to fight to change things. But see, that's what the problem is. We don't need to all be Americans. Everybody doesn't need to be American. Whatever this idea was that suddenly America needed to be for every single type of person in the world, that America needed to be this global melting pot, that's where we went wrong. Because it's not working. The white people are diminishing and the other people are growing. And it's designed that way. One tribe isn't helping the other tribe. White people are helping them. White people are saying, yes, please take center stage. Yes, please tell us we're terrible. Yes, come on, punish us, punish us, punish us. White ladies, I don't want to be repetitive here. This whole channel is about that. But we literally watched that. That show on TV was an assault. That's really what it was. America, you're overdoing it. You were better off when you said Desi Arnaz. That was making more sense. No, because the world is different now. The world is different than it was when Desi and Lucy were doing their little thing. And Lucy was center stage, and there was Fred and Ethel, and Desi, and maybe his band. They were visiting the United States. This show, if you watch the Bad Bunny show, they come out at the end with all the flags from all of America. This is the spin that they did. The spin is God bless America. And when they said America, they mean North America and South America, the whole continent. And the United States was at the last, right? And you might want to, if you're really charitable, you might want to go, oh, well, maybe that's kind of a cool thing to have a continent pride, and maybe there's this unifying thing, and maybe that's good. Maybe we need to not undersell Latinos, and that, maybe you've heard me talk about this before. Latinos and white Latinos, especially, and white Americans, tend to get along. It's kind of cool that 58% of Latinos are supporting Trump, much to the dismay of lefties. And even within this Bad Bunny performance, where he's kind of trying to do the guy in a dress thing, I'm still sensing that it wasn't overtly, besides the little nod to Ricky Martin and the fact that choreography is basically gay anyway. I mean, let's be honest. There's no choreography in the world that has ever been masculine. You can try to find, I was thinking that when I was watching the TPUSA thing, when the dad guy, what was his name, Bryce something, he comes out and he's shaped like a dad, and it's just weird to see, first of all, dads singing. There's a thing about a guy on a tractor or a guy on a horse, but also singing. They can kind of get away with it. They got that deep voice and it's country, But it's still weird when they get their guitar up there and then they decide that they have to do some rock star moves. That's another new thing about pop country that I'm like, yeah, no, I don't need to see dad jeans, dad butt dancing. No. Stand there and play your guitar, sing. That's already enough to watch Johnny Cash sing a song. It's already weird enough that he's crying in tune, So maybe don't wiggle your butt, So any choreography, flash back over to Bad Bunny, and it's all wacky, hyper-sexualized dancing. Everybody's twerking. In fact, one of his songs, I had to look up the translations, but one of the songs is I Twerk Alone, and it's supposedly this feminist anthem about going out and twerking, which is basically just doing, simulating sexual moves in the air. And I twerk alone. Hello, that's profound. But yeah, everybody's Latin. And but you still get the impression that masculinity and machismo is still a thing, despite the pressure to put Bad Bunny in a dress, and despite him doing it. There's still the overlying thing is that Latino people have been maybe less neutered than white people, which is kind of shameful. But it's shameful that anybody's been neutered at all. But the fact that white people have been neutered even more than Latino people is kind of crazy. So yeah, trying to cut all the slack and trying to go, okay, maybe there's this bridge, and you always look for opportunities to make things good or whatever. But I wasn't able to, because when you break it down, them saying Latino pride, that's great. I'm all for it. Be proud of being Latin. Black people, be proud. Arab people, be proud. Chinese people, be proud. White people, be proud. You can too. And this goes against what I've been saying for years. One of the things I've said 1,000 times is pride and shame should be limited to that which bears your fingerprints. I'm so fucking poetic saying that. But it's like the idea, if you didn't do anything, if you just were born into a body, I don't know how somebody has pride in something they didn't choose, like their gender, their race, their whatever. I didn't choose any of this stuff. I don't remember choosing it. So it's always been weird to be proud of it. But now, since I've finally realized that tribalism is the only way we're ever going to save white people, if they need saving at all, and I think they probably do, is through these same tactics that these other groups have used to expand and grow. And that's what they are doing. That whole display of the Bad Bunny show, that was an aggressive, you might want to not say globalist, but you might say hemispherist act. And they're not assimilating. That's the difference. I'm tired of people saying, oh, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Everything's the same. The left and the right are the same. Up and down are the same. Good and evil are the same. Republicans and Democrats are the same. No, they're not. No two things are the same. No two people are the same. No two twins are the same. Things are different. When anybody tries to tell you things are the same, they're lazy and they're simplifying, right? The devil is in the details, and so is God. You know? Why do they say the devil is in the details? Why isn't it the God is in the details? Because that's really the truth. That might be an inversion. I just thought of that just now. It should be God is in the details. And it is. Until you can, if you can't outwardly express gratitude for the way God made you, and you might call that pride. There might be some definitions here that we have a problem with, but to be thankful to be white is not something. In fact, you might get even in more trouble if you just said, thank God I'm white. That's worse than white pride, white power. Thank God I'm white. Anybody else can say that. White people can't say it. We're getting better at saying it, and I'm saying it right now. And it's definitely easier to say it now than it was, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Hell, when did it start getting hard to say that? It's always been hard to say that in my life. There's never been a time where you didn't get in trouble. You wouldn't get in trouble for saying, thank God I'm white. Maybe even in the 70s, you could get a laugh and people wouldn't get butthurt about it. But for a long time, it's just been a really terrible thing to say. And look, the TPUSA and the Bad Bunny shows were, I was going to say black and white, but they're as different as night and day. They're the same, dude. You're talking about the same thing. One of them is white, saying white stuff, and the other one's Latin saying, I say, okay, but those are different things. Those are different things. Latin people are different than white people. You can even just go look at both shows yourself, and that will just tell you what you need to know about the difference between white people and Latin people. We're different. And different people should be allowed to live differently. This is where tribalism comes in. This is where the American Football League and the American institution, white people who, for whatever reason, through a series of sacrifices and wars and battles, conquered this land of America and created a space for white people and people who like white people's things. That's the whole thing about opening up America. Is just like, okay, here's our rules, here's our Constitution, these are the rules. And a lot of people who aren't white go, hey, I like those rules too. I like to be around white people. I like it when white people are in charge. I do pretty well when white people are in charge. And so we've been welcoming to those people. But that's not what we're having anymore. Now it's like, no, we're pushing you out. We're vengeful. They're saying, the thing is like, oh, hey, we're happy to be here. Thanks. Hey, thanks for inviting me to your Super Bowl halftime show. I'm going to translate my whole thing into English since I know that most of America speaks English. I'm going to do this in English to show gratitude. No, it's not. It's hostile. And maybe Puerto Rico has a reason to be hostile. I don't know. I haven't looked into the history, But when somebody's creating a hostile act towards you, you should know. You should know that it's hostile. You should understand that that show was hostile. It wasn't, hey, everybody, let's all get along. No, no, no. If you say let's all get along, you don't have a cast of entirely Latin people. No white people. None. Somebody should be suing, quite frankly, because Lord knows there's somebody that auditioned and got turned down on account of being white, too white. Oh, you're blonde. Sorry. Can't have you. You know? It's a hostile takeover. It's what they're doing, you know? And so that needs to be dealt with. White people got to fucking figure some shit out pretty fast. Oh, but Merkley, come on. Dude, you're such a snowflake. You're such a fucking snowflake. You can't handle? No, I like it. I liked it. I like Latin rhythms. I loved Brazil. I loved when I went to Brazil. And you know what I did when I went to Brazil? I spoke Portuguese everywhere I went. And I tried to do it to the best of my ability. I tried different accents in Brazil. I got pretty good at emulating different regions in Brazil. I could do a really good Baiano accent when I lived in Brazil. I got upset with my American counterparts that would speak English around Brazilians. You know, they would just like speak English, and I'd be like, "Come on, guys, what? That's rude. We're in Brazil." You know, when you're speaking a different language amongst people who might not understand you, it's rude. It's like they don't know what you're saying. It's rude. This is basic. Is this just a white thing? You know, but they did a whole halftime experience in Spanish. You know. That's insulting. And, you know, you should be insulted. When somebody insults you, how you feel about it is up to you. But you have to know what they intend. And the intent there is to insult you, humiliate you, and take vengeance upon you. There's no gratitude. There was no gratitude in that halftime show at all. No gratitude from Bad Bunny saying America's given me all this opportunity, all this money and all this attention, all these white people that are watching me, paying for my stuff, you know, making me a millionaire, giving me a stage. There's no gratitude. It's hostility. You know, I don't know exactly what the answers are to this thing, but saying it's the same is I'm done with it. I'm done with conservatives just pretending. I'm hearing people saying, "Oh, left and right are just the same. Democrats and Republicans are just the same." No, not true. To say homeschool your children and teach them good values and protect them is different than saying send them to school where they will be trained to hate themselves, to hate their skin color, to hate their gender, to chop off their dick, slice off their tits, you know, to castrate themselves, to genuflect to brown people, to feel like that they deserve that, to when they watch American football, to see no white people at all, you know. It's hostile. And maybe, okay, fine. You can go back and you can say, yeah, but America, that's what Europeans did. They were hostile when they came to America. Fine. You can say that if you want to, you know. Indians were fighting with each other. There's tribal beefs all over the place. For whatever reasons, Europeans came in, and it worked well for a really long time. So much that everybody wanted to come here. And they still want to come here. Why? Because white people do a really good job putting that shit together. When white people move into a neighborhood, the property value goes up. Why is that? I don't know. But it's the truth. White people add lots of value. Nobody wants to move into the black neighborhood. And only certain Latin neighborhoods you want to move into. You want to avoid certain parts of it. Latin people know this. Black people know this. Everybody knows this. But right now, we've got people who, for whatever reason, are resentful and angry. And it's resentful. That's really what it is. But the interesting thing is we're still raising property values. Even having said all that, even with Bad Bunny, Bad Bunny's going to move to a very light-skinned neighborhood. I promise you. Might not be all white. If he stays in Puerto Rico, chances are he's going to have a lot of white neighbors. He's not going to stay in the poorest ghetto of Puerto Rico. He's not. Anyway, they're not the same. So stop saying that, everybody. Stop saying that pigeons and hawks are the same. They're not. Stop saying black and white people are the same. They're not. Stop saying TPUSA and other political organizations are the same. They're not. Stop saying Trump and other political leaders are the same. They're not. Stop saying Jews and whites are the same. They're not. Blacks and whites are not. No, none of us are the same. We're all different. And we're all fucking amazing. And we don't need to be racing towards this fucking middle blob. We can protect the amazing things that are about us. We can have gratitude and say, thank God I'm white. White is beautiful. White is lovely. White is wholesome. It's okay to be white. It's great to be white. Few things are better in the world than being white. This shouldn't bother anybody out there, because they've been talking about white privilege for a long time. Let's embrace that. Let's embrace it instead of saying, how dare you say that? How dare you say that? There's no white privilege. Let's just say, okay, fine. Sure, it is. It's a privilege to be white. Now, let's use that fucking advantage and clean some shit up and put a stop to this nonsense of people coming to our country and waving their flags in our faces and just taking it over and twerking in our faces, while saying, it's great to be Latino. It's great to be Latino. Great. Go back to fucking Puerto Rico. Wave your fucking ass over there. There's a reason why we didn't let you turn into a state. And it's this. You see this? This is why you're not a state. By the way, that's another one of the things I was thinking. You know what this is? This is Democrats working behind the scenes to make Puerto Rico a state, to change the electoral college again. Mark my words. That was the opening ceremonies of that push. And white people need to get their shit together and make sure it doesn't happen. And you know who else needs to get together to make sure it doesn't happen? Latin people. Okay? Puerto Ricans that live in America. And this has already happened. This is why the 58% of the people are supporting Trump, Latinos. Because those people know. Those people love ICE. They're glad that they're kicking the bad Latinos back out. They're glad they're kicking the cartels out. These people that came here to America, most of them are the ones that came with good intentions, the ones that come legally. They're trying to get the fuck away from that shit. So those people need to wake up too. And they need to wake up in a way, not saying, oh, we need to take control. Just fucking vote for the white people, okay? White people did a good job making this place. Just take that into consideration. You're fleeing from somewhere. Don't drag it with you. And maybe when you get here, maybe instead of burning our flag, you start waving our flag because you wanted to come here. Maybe leave your other flag at home. Or maybe even out of a sign of respect. Here's a new tradition. When you arrive into a country as an immigrant and you plan to live there and make a life, as a gesture of assimilation, maybe you should take your own flag of the place where you're fleeing and burn it. You can even make it sacred if you want to. You don't need to stamp on it. You don't need to pee on it. But maybe have a little altar where you take your old flag and you light it on fire, and then you pick up the new flag. How about that? How about that for a gesture of gratitude? Of, if you want unity, if you're going to Latin unity, if you're just going to have Latin unity, then go do that where there are all Latin people. But we have white people here. So that's not going to fly. So that's the answer to that earlier question where, how much of the U.S. military budget is spent on country songs and waving flags. Maybe we don't spend enough. I know that's a flip-flop from earlier in the recording, but maybe we don't spend enough, or maybe we don't spend enough of our own. Maybe I haven't in my life. Maybe I've spent too much time thinking that those things and those symbols are stupid, that they're not worth something, but maybe they are. I think they are. I think now that I'm getting older, I'm realizing that something as simple as unifying under a flag, one flag, goes a really long way in making a nice country, a nice place, a nice town, So yeah, I used to be very irreverent about the flag, and I was very irreverent about the Pledge of Allegiance. I wrote my own, I pledge allegiance to myself, and blah, 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 thinking I was really smart, But now I'm seeing the value in those things. And honestly, I never thought I would say this, but if somebody asked me to sign a bill that makes burning a flag illegal, I think I might. First Amendment notwithstanding, there's freedom of speech, and then there's an outwardly hostile act of war. And to me, burning a flag as a foreign invader, it's like, even if you get a white kid doing it, you kind of want to draw a distinction between Bad Bunny coming in and burning the flag, or somebody else from another country, some Palestinian or some Israeli, burning a flag, and maybe some freckled redhead kid from Utah doing it. But both of them are just bad. You feel sorry for the redhead freckle guy because you go, what the fuck happened to you, dude? Who fucking programmed you to make you think that these values are bad? And for the outsider that does it, it's just a hostile act of war. They should be treated. Maybe you don't make it illegal. Maybe you just say, oh, you're a hostile invader. Here's what we do with those. Maybe it's just a classification. You burn our flag, you're classified as a foreign enemy. Seems pretty clear. Who's going to argue with that? Well, why were you burning the flag? Well, freedom of speech, yo. Yeah, there's lots of ways to express your freedom of speech, but you're burning a flag. You're burning my country in effigy. We need to stop falling for that shit. Anyway, thanks for listening. Unnecessary outro song to total